What does Moogie and our podcast have in common?
What's that?
Most people who know them prefer them with their clothes off. How was that? Was that bad? That wasn't bad, right?
See, I was gonna go with like, hey, Mike, is your mom secretly dating Joe Biden? But also possible.
Yeah, I'm gonna give the edge to me there.
Wow. Well, look, I'm not the one who's having a secret affair with the other one's mother like you are.
We canceled all those pods, so chances are she's fallen off. She's found a new interest.
So we're gonna do what we do every week at the beginning of this episode. Can I snap and get the button? Okay, we are going to talk about last week's episode, Business as Usual, with your patron exclusive feedback. And of course, if you would like me to read your comments here on the YouTubes, you can become a patron at patreon.com/KNM. Mike will give his spiel later, but we want to go straight to your spiel from last week's episode, Business as... That's not right. That's not... Songs of Blood and Fire, or whatever the heck the last episode was.
Yeah, it's like the Game of Thrones thing.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. This is... I think this might be our worst start ever for an episode.
It's going good, man. I don't know what you're talking about. This is going real good.
Joshua Cronin says, I enjoyed this heartfelt episode immensely. The depth that Nanak can act is incredible, and such a great story to tell. I give this 90 self-sealing stem bolts. Brian from Video Game Drive-By says, another episode that broke me. I watched my grandfather wasting away and watched my family nearly tear itself apart over a discussion if they were going to let nurses help him end more peacefully. Oof. I always love when they give Nana some good meat to chew on. Also, last episode, I realized I keep getting y'all's names backwards.
It's okay.
So, yeah, sorry about that. Hey, we don't know that. And honestly, in real life, we really are not likely to be confused for each other, so
rarely happens.
Yeah. Also, I too saw Anaconda and The Lost World at a drive-in theater as a double bill. Tucson had a great drive-in theater when I was a kid. Ooh, I love that.
I
great
love Tucson, actually. Tucson's a cool spot.
Oh, I've never been.
It's dry.
We didn't go there on
heat,
tour, did we?
No.
Oh, okay. I forget. Kevin Miles says, I give this episode 93 self-sealing stem bolts. Kira's emotions just tugged at my heart. Yeah, it's interesting, like, how universal some of these questions are, because we had a long discussion about, end of life and care at end of life, and it's something that everybody goes through at some point. So, really does tug at one's heart. Hibernation Pod says, a more hands-on approach to a great story arc as Wei Yun makes his triumphant return and celebrates with a shot of Kanar. 85 self-sealing stem bolts. Yes, delighted. We're just scratching the Wei Yun surface, and I could not be happier. YouTube viewer says, as a Bajoran resistance fighter who was constantly pushing against her leaders in the Bajoran government and Ferengi regulations, I imagine Kira was sympathetic to the Bajoran dissident movement in general. And at least once she accepted some Cardassians are good. I still think it's foolish that they kept Dukat as a goal. I think the writers were afraid viewers were too stupid to be confused of a brand name change. I disagree, actually, because I think that yes, I think you're right as to why they kept it the way that they did, but I think the reasoning that they gave that Dukat would find some egotistical way, some fake man of the people way to keep that actually fits the character really well. And I think it's a nice color that, like, he's like, I'm a man of the people. It's like he's like oh, here's our sounds.
Sorry, the cat hit us. You might see I have my co-star hit a fader.
Aw. It's like Castro or somebody, like, I'm still a man of the people, but you're clearly not.
Well, we didn't this is season 5, right? So once again, double agrees. Mostly agree with his point. I definitely agree with your point. I think the way they wrote it in is excellent and very Ducat, right? So doesn't feel like it's put on top. But let's not forget, it's not just, oh, they're dumb. But by now, there have been toys, merch, all kinds of things that have been established with Gaul, and you don't want to, A, spoiler anything, and B, it is not just dumb branding, it's IP branding they've already done.
Yeah. No, it's true, and we're not... And whereas our other characters can get promoted, right? It can be like lieutenant commander to commander or lieutenant up to whatever. Those are names and ranks that we're familiar with. Mm-hmm. So the change doesn't feel as jarring as opposed to these made up words like you're doing for the Cardassians. So a YouTube viewer continues. I'm not 100% sure Cardassia is akin to Putin's Russia. I think it's closer to Soviet Russia, though I guess Putin was a part of that too. Yeah, for sure. And I think, well, I'll finish the thought and then I'll weigh in. Star Trek uses a bit of Planet of Hats trope, where most species are defined by one trait. Vulcans value logic to an extreme degree. Ferengi value profit to an extreme degree. Klingons value honor to an extreme degree. Cardassian culture is defined by patriotism. Remember that the most popular novel in Cardassia is about 7 generations of a single family living selfless ties for the state. I'm not sure we have a contemporary or historical Earth society that pulled off that level of patriotism to an institution, not a person, though the Soviets and CCP tried. Okay, great discussion. Great thoughts.
What's the name of that trope again? I've never heard that before.
Planet of Hats. I've never heard that, but I like it. I think it's really smart, and I think it's really accurate. Although I would not say that Cardassia is defined by patriotism at all. I think it's defined by authoritarianism. I think it's defined by propaganda, in the same way that, like, you know, the Soviets and the CCP and plenty of other countries all over the place today trying to use propaganda, or like North Korea would be a good example of that today, where, like, yeah, there's a lot of propaganda. I'm not sure that translates into patriotism that's real. I believe it translates into false patriotism or death. But yeah, and in terms of, like, is Cardassia more like Soviet-style Russia or Putin's Russia? And I think that there's a sort of an argument for both. Although I think in this this new version of Cardassia with Ducat as the head, nominal head, I think there is some more parallels with Putin's Russia, because it has the pretense of being something it's not, right? Soviet Russia was not under the pretense that this is a democracy. It was not under the pretense that we're listening to that. Whereas Putin, clearly a dictatorship, but he's operating under the pretense of a democracy. So they have elections, right? And I think that's probably closer to what Ducat is doing.
That's more like, what, an autocracy?
Yeah, exactly. So it's an autocracy, it's a kleptocracy, it's a plutocracy. It's sort of a bunch of combination of all of those things. But it's interesting.
Also, the Planet of Hats thing is where I will agree, because looking it up, it's, basically like, oh, if they all wear hats, right, on this planet,
right?
And a ubiquity. Mm-hmm. At least Deep Space Nine makes its efforts at times to challenge that. Like, I would argue that, to a degree, this week's episode we're about to cover challenges the Planet of Hats of Ferenginar once again. Of course, they only ever talk about the sort of 2 bits of Ferenginar, female.
Well, and it's true though. Next Gen was very Planet of Hats. Deep Space Nine starts to pull the hat off a little bit. I think you're exactly right. It's the Klingons become more complex. The Cardassians are very complex. Ferengi are more complex. All of them add many more layers than what Next Gen did, mainly because it's so serialized versus episode to episode. They just go to a new planet and they all have to wear sashes. They all have to wear, whatever it is, because they're not, because in the original series and Next Gen, these alien species were about the issue of the week. They were a tool to make your point about whatever issue you were talking about that week. Whereas on Deep Space Nine, they are characters into themselves, and so they are not just a straw man to make your point about whatever it is. Again, why Deep Space Nine is so great. All right, so YouTube continues. I didn't see a problem with Gamar's sweater. Cardassians really like it warm. Remember? Thank you for reminding me. That actually makes a great deal of sense, especially because they all complain because the station's cold now.
And the only thing that bothered me was I think the point we were making was that it must be uncomfortable to wear on set when you already have all that makeup on.
For the actor, yeah, that must have been death for the actor. The fact that Kira has adapted to post-war life as well as she did is a testament to the power of Bajoran spirituality and religion. Something that Gene Roddenberry would have never allowed when he was alive, proving even geniuses have blind spots. I think you could make that argument. I think that, for her character, that was her method forward. I don't necessarily think that the show is saying that religion specifically has this amazing ability, or more that just this was Kira's ability that she focused through religion. I don't know. But you're right that Gene Roddenberry would not have been on board with anywhere near the amount of spirituality shown on Deep Space Nine. Mike is spot on.
Hey, I got some.
Hey,
right.
How about that? You were 0 for 2 last week.
Yeah.
Talking about a lot of people being afraid of dying. In my limited experience, atheists fear death more than religious people. I lean towards agnosticism, so I have no idea where I will land on the spectrum when I stare death in the face. That is an interesting assertion. As somebody who is basically an atheist, but
no, you're an agnostic who leans atheist, I would say.
Yes, yeah. Well, distinction without much of a difference.
I don't want to Planet of Hats you, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, basically, like, I don't believe in anything, but I also understand that I don't know everything. So they're good, and so it's not so much that I don't know, but I don't have any sort of educated guess, right? Mm-hmm. I do have an educated guess, but I acknowledge it to be a guess. Anyway, I would, and I don't know what your experiences were specifically. And like you said, I have no idea how I'm going to feel when that comes. And so I think that, a lot of the conceptual philosophical discussions get put to the side when it becomes real.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say I would assume that if someone is truly an atheist, right, and you know that, and you believe wholeheartedly that you wink out to nothing, there's nothing to be afraid of. I think if you are feeling the fear of what happens next, maybe you're not really an atheist. I don't know. Perhaps you're more of an agnostic.
Well, I'll challenge that just for the sake of it, right? So I would say I'm definitely more of an agnostic who leans wanting to be more spiritual. I want to believe. That's the thing, right? Whereas you seem a little more neutral, right? And
you're Mulder,
willing to accept,
I'm Scully.
Yeah. I definitely want to believe there's something bigger that's pulling the strings and that there's some sort of agency, right? However, I'm not going to blindly believe anything. That's just not how I roll. Now, that said, I don't even like to be alone when I'm sick. Generally speaking, I like to be alone. When I'm sick and I feel well, I need people around me. Now,
interesting.
What I don't like,
opposite. Yeah.
What I don't like is when you're going through something, be it your own illness or something just bad vibes or whatnot, is when people is false empathy. When people are like, oh, I know how you feel, like, that's not what I want to hear. I'm just wanting your energies right now. And in my empirical experience with everyone I've known who's passed away, and I've been in that inner circle of grief, none of them were asking us to leave. You know what I mean? Most people were wanting to be surrounded by folks. So that includes my dad, who was very much, I don't want people to see me like this, but also towards the end was like, I want to be at home with my people. So I don't know. I think the salient point here, and what he was expressing, is that it's hard to know until you're in the situation. This is just, you just don't know.
Yep. No, for sure. So, lastly, say I had 2 relatives who lost their ability to communicate early, well before they died. So I'm not sure how they faced the end. That's tough. This episode is brilliant, emotionally driven, well-paced, and nuanced. Nana Visitor does the heavy lifting, but the supporting cast was all on point too, especially Combs and Alimo. Only minor flaws in this episode, 90 out of 100. Wow. Self-sealing stem bolts.
Man, I way underrated this. Where did I put it?
Oh, I gotta pull it up. Hold on, let me see.
Please don't turn the computer off, buddy.
Tux.
Tuxie.
Tux.
Come on.
Don't turn off the computer.
Oh, thank you, bud. Good job.
We need the computer. We both gave it an 83. Ties of Blood and Water.
All right.
So, not too bad. JD says, it's 90 here in Texas. And, we were like, oh, sweater weather, hoodie weather. It's going to be 97 here today.
It's hot right now. It's bad news.
So, take it all back. JD says, Mr. Roper was the first 3 seasons of Three's Company. He was replaced with the Don Knotts character. Knotts was also great in things like Apple Dumpling Gang and Mr. Limpet. I definitely watched Apple Dumpling Gang as a kid. I don't remember much of it, but I know he sort of talked like this. Yeah. In Disco, they were having an interesting episode about using a hollow parent for therapy purposes, but they didn't go far enough with the concept. Yeah, I think there'd be a whole episode about that. When you stand up from a leather chair in the summer and the back of your leg sticks a little, Jeef is the sound it makes. Remember how we were doing the...
Jeef riff?
Jeef riff? I don't even remember what that was about.
Yeah, me neither. That's for the internet.
Yeah. Well, I think it was like if our name together, or was it me and somebody else?
It was you and somebody else, I think. Jeef.
Wow. This is,
Jen and Keith? No, that would be weird.
That's uncomfortable.
It was definitely a Bennifer thing.
Uh-huh.
Oh, it was I was trying to hook you up with J-Lo, because she's single now.
Oh!
So it was and I was like, Keith Lowe, and you said Jeef. There we go. It's all back, baby.
Oh, we have reconstructed. We
haven't completely lost our minds yet.
Wow, God, no thank you.
But in recounting that, it makes me wonder why we said it the first time.
If we recount anything that we say ever,
yeah,
it should question why. Like, why did we say that? Why are we doing this? Why is anybody listening? These are all important questions. All right, so JD continues. The K&M t-shirts need to say, "All goop, no poop."
100%.
Yeah, that's.
But we can. But I already am more. I don't know. What are people gonna think? Because I already walk around my neighborhood with a shirt that says, "Grab them by the bazorp-zorps." So, oof.
I don't. Jillian won't let me leave the house with it.
I'll say this: I've watched it a few times, and it's getting a little smedium, if you know what I'm saying. Can't quite read it because my boobs are kind of filling it out.
Yeah. So then there's 3 down below, 2 up top. That's 5 boobs.
Hey. I'm in the camp of more the merrier. So
5 is a lot. 5 is a lot. You start going into interspecies there at this point. All right, JD, who now wishes he hadn't participated in this in any way, shape, or form, says, "Excuse me, Miles O'Brien is the most important person in Starfleet history." There's a lot of good arguments to be made for that. Kira's binary morality is sometimes a weakness. The moment where Wayun drinks the poison Kanar is hilarious to me. This is actually a tough one to settle on a rating. It's quite good, but yeah, 80 self-sealing stem bolts. I have not thought about how many parents show up this season. Weird. Wait for the next episode, which is now here. Mike, we got more family issues coming, but here's the thing, Mike. Most Deep Space Nine fans, when they talk about Deep Space Nine, it's not about war or exploration. What it almost always gets talked about is it's about family. And I think it is deserved. All right, well, thank you so much, patrons, for weighing in on this episode. You can join in and leave the comments down below. Even if we don't read them online, we definitely read them and appreciate them every single week. All right, so let us talk about Ferengi Love Songs, which aired on April 14th, 1997. Top song, Continued. its reign of domination. Can't Nobody Hold Me Down.
No.
And did I? You know what? It might not actually be true because I forgot to update it this week. We're going to look at it live.
Okay.
We're good. We'll do it live. Do it live.
That's a well we've returned to a few times.
Forever. Okay, so we can now officially confirm it was still Can't Nobody Hold Me Down. So still can't sing that. Don't do it. Bad choice. All right, so number one movie, was it still Anaconda? We're going to find out. In fact, it was still Anaconda. So I didn't even need to go relook that up because it was still true. The fantastic Anaconda. You know what? It's imminently rewatchable. It is still fun to watch today. I've seen it like 4 times, and I enjoy it every darn time. What was Voyager doing? It was doing the episode... It was, well, I guess they were off this week. We were between Before and After and Real Life. Oh, what an interesting couplet of episodes. Real Life was so sad. All right.
Keith, hold on.
Yeah. Yes.
I do want to talk a couple of things on the television.
Oh, yes.
In 95, David Copperfield had a special called Unexplained Forces. And I showed it on one of our podcasts. Remember, he was like shooting snow, and the snow was all around him, and he was flying around shooting snow. I showed a clip, and you were like, "Oh, we're gonna get demonetized." I can't remember if it was this episode.
That's a really good Keith. That's a flawless Keith.
Was it this podcast or was it Out of Practice? I can't remember. 95.
No, it would have had to have been this podcast. A, because we wouldn't have been demonetized. We didn't care about that because we weren't on the YouTubes. And B, the practice started right now in 1997.
Okay, so you already know about David Copperfield. We've already talked about this when it aired 2 years ago. They're re-airing it, but I looked it up on YouTube, and it had another trick I really loved. I loved this one. In fact, so basically, you picked a number, and then he did all these things, like count the number. He did all these things on screen for the TV viewer, and at the end, shocker, he picked your number.
Oh, I remember that.
And
I did the math on that. It makes perfect sense.
Me too. I remember taping it off TV on the VHS, and watching it and trying every number from 1 to 12 to confirm that despite what number you chose, it would be that. That said, still an awesome effect, still in the moment, which is how magic is supposed to be experienced, not rewound on VHS. It was pretty awesome. And David Copperfield, go back and watch some of his specials. Yes, they're very 90s or 80s, depending. And it's very presentational. However, much like In and of Itself, if you haven't watched it on Hulu, you must watch. Like many magicians, incredible storyteller, just an incredible actor when he just stands and delivers a monologue.
Okay, all right. Let us please move forward into...
Now, Keith, waste your time.
Now, Keith, waste your time with
Mike was in the wrong key.
I mean, you were close. You're just down a step.
I was down a step, yeah.
All right, so Trivial Trivia. This episode... I'm curious if you noticed this.
Directed by René Auberjonois?
Yeah, oh, yes. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention that. Directed by René Auberjonois, who last directed Let He Who Is Without Sin, with a teleplay by Ira Stephen Bear and Hans Beimler, who last wrote On Rapture. All right, so here's the trivia part. Did you notice...
The custom toys they used?
No, stop guessing. It's coming.
I thought those were cool. They looked like customs, yeah.
We're going to talk about those. This episode introduces Cecily Adams as Ishka. Mm-hmm. That's right. Andrea Martin,
right.
Previously played the role in Family Business, decided to hard pass on the prosthetics and decided not to return to the role. Adams would play Ishka for the duration of the remaining episodes.
But interestingly, Keith, as much as I do recognize and appreciate Andrea Martin, do you know what my first flag was? And I had to look it up in real time. It was the voice.
What's that?
The voice. I definitely recognized a difference in the voice.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting that every time you have an alien, you can recast. That's why we have 15 different ZLs, and now we have 2 different Moogies. But yeah, there is a difference in the performance for sure. So Cecily Adams, unfortunately, has passed. She died at 46.
I'm sorry.
She died when she was our age. But she wasn't just an actor; she was a casting director primarily. and she cast 128 episodes of That 70s Show, and 49 episodes of Third Rock from the Sun, 100 episodes of Adventure in Wonderland. So she was actually more of a casting director than a performer. But very interesting.
Third Rock, I liked that show.
Yeah.
It was early Gordon Levitt, right?
That's right. Remember the show Flash Forward?
No.
She did that? Oh, it was like coming up right after Lost. It was one of those Lost ripoffs. And what else did she do? Yeah, all right, that's the interesting stuff. All right. So, according to Ira Stephen Bear, the working title of this episode was How Quark Acquired His Groove Back. That's way better.
You think so?
Yeah, I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
How Quark acquired his groove back?
Oh, that's pretty good. Okay. I didn't hear that part.
I mean, I understand why they didn't use it, because you're sort of like referencing a different property, like it's contemporary. But
well, and that's not very inclusive of the B story here, which I think is also very lovely.
No, that's true, but you don't have to do the whole recap in the episode title.
Right. You know, Ferengis aren't really known for their inclusivity.
No. So the Marauder Mo action figures, wait for it, are not the Playmates figures, which anybody with a careful eye would know. They are redressed Super Patriot figures from the Todd McFarlane Spawn action figures of the mid-90s. 2 of the action figures hold an energy whip made from pipe cleaners seen in The Last Outpost and Acquisition. So they obviously did custom heads and probably painted them. But yeah, that's crazy. Fun.
Yeah.
So speaking of reusing things, Zek's throne was originally built as a Romulan command chair for the episode The Die is Cast, although it was not used in that episode. So Laura Richards redressed the prop for this episode. It's cool. I mean, I wish that they had more money to spend on the Ferengi Chamber of Commerce throne room, but at least the chair was cool. But you know who is cool at any budget, never needs to be redressed, but perhaps might want redress from us from this episode?
I would have said we wish that the slide had to be redressed so that we could add some folks to it. Regardless, folks, it's the patrons. It's Brian Kimberbeersock. It's Peter Bank. It's Frank Rinch. It's Quark's Bar. It's Yanba. It's Chesley. It's Crony. Merritt Neath.
Oh no.
Hazy.
Names.
Alan. And the Mysterious. Worfs. Big Ol' Blue Chivs. Charles Babbage. Harry Pothead. Anton Thies. Carl Fisher. Chris Mitchell. Nicolay. Delusions at Noon. YouTube Viewer. James Hubbard. Hibernation Pod. Miri Holcomb. Brian. From the Video Game Drive-By Podcast. Odo's Bucket. The Lost Emu. JD Makes, Colin, Chris, Frank, Pat, Joshua, Kim, Goss, Jerry D, Lutz
What is happening over there?
White Eldridge, and Andreas Erickson. They all come in at different levels of support, but our level of love does not waver. We appreciate them, and those who have gone over the top, Keith, just killing it. Oh, that's these folks right here. They're in the Hall of Fame. And, yeah, that's all I got to say in the matter. You can join them, patreon.com/K&M. Keep your eyes peeled. We're going to get a little poll up there this week to see when we're going to watch Wrath of Khan together as a freaking family.
Yes.
Please join them.
Did you drop the AMA yet?
No, that's today.
Okay. Yeah, so definitely I need to update some of those slides. I just realized that. I was going to try to do it live, but my computer was going to melt down, so can't do that.
But there's some... Who else should get love, though, Keith?
Oh, lots of people.
Oh, that's... So, yeah, so to those people, we love you. Keith is just busy.
Yeah, busy with things in my hands. Okay, so our guest stars this week. It's a reference to a show I'm working on.
Okay.
You know it. It's from SVU.
Yeah, I got you.
All right. Our guest stars include Cecily Adams here as her first appearance as Ishka, Max Grodenchik as Rom, Chase Masterton as Lita, Tiny Ron as Mayhardu, Hamilton Camp as Lek, Wallace Shawn as Zek, and back for his second week in a row with a different character, Jeffrey Combs as Brunt. So good, so fun. What do you say? We go into the screening room.
David Copperfield.
Wow, David Copperfield. All right, so in our teaser, we begin with a fake out, making us believe that a war has broken out in Quark's bar, but we quickly find out they're just trying to eradicate the vole infestation. Pretty cute, pretty fun. But the bar is closed, and Quark is depressed. And later, sad Quark is given exciting news by his brother Rom, and guess what? He and Lita are engaged. He is predictably unenthused, but big moment for Rom and Lita. I don't know how I feel about that happening off screen.
Yeah, I would agree, but I was happy to see it nonetheless, and it seems natural. I mentioned it a couple times in the watch along I've watched. I won't belabor the point, but I'm sure you could find plenty of arguments about how their relationship feels a little syrupy, but I love it. It's always worked for me. Their chemistry works for me. I'm okay with the shortcuts and seeing things happening, not seeing every beat happen, because I just believe it. They feel like they're like Ben and Jake for me. It just feels so right every time they're together on screen. So I grant it a lot of grace. I love it. I love this beat for them.
No, I mean, honestly, I only say that because I'm so happy for them, and I want to see it. I want to see all of that joy. But
I could have seen a scene here where you see the proposal and they comment on that too, because I think, him. You could argue that it's a little abrupt. All of a sudden his turnabout feelings about how he's not behaving as like a Ferengi male and his. But I just chalked it up to general cold feet. And anyway, I agree with you. It could have been a cool scene, but it's okay.
It's fine. It's fine. So Rom and Lita encourage Quark to go home and get cheered up by none other than his mother, Moogie. Also, Renee, I'm gonna go back. Renee, buddy, I love you. We know what you're doing with this extended shot.
Yeah.
We know what's happening here.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. So we then get a terrific matte painting of the rainy Ferenginar, and Quark arrives at his childhood home and hugs his mother. I love that matte.
No, it's great. Yeah.
And with the rain falling in front of it, like it's a sort of a mixture of different layers.
Yeah, the rain there, much like film grain. Helps blend the scene, right, and make it all the composite seem like they're in the same universe.
Yeah, looks really good. So he goes home and hugs his mother, and in Act 1, Rom is very excited about the wedding, and he's now wearing a Bajoran earring, which what I would assume is the equivalent of an engagement ring, and he's agreed to have a traditional Bajoran wedding. Sweet, great. Love his willingness to do that. But then O'Brien starts trouble by asking if she is respecting his traditions as well. And she's not, of course.
O'Brien's screen grabs did not play nice this week.
I think Dax might be drinking coffee. We know what O'Brien is drinking in this. But O'Brien's starting problems, and Dax doubles down. Thanks, Dax. And she says, that's a very enlightened attitude, Rom. Rom is not your traditional Ferengi male. I guess not. You're probably the least Ferengi-like Ferengi I've ever met. I guess so. And then Dax, what are you doing? It's not a bad thing, Rom. No traditional Ferengi male could ever marry a non-Ferengi and be happy. He could never trust her. What are you doing? Obviously, you're setting plot machinations, but like, what are you doing?
The entire plot here, B plot, revolves around Rom questioning. I would say it's hard to articulate this for me.
Mm-hmm.
His dramatic identifying with needing to be more Ferengi in order to challenge her here feels at times to me a little incongruent to clearly his utter devotion to her throughout multiple storylines we've seen in the past. Now, I think we gloss over its motivation for more of the, because I think the beats that play out and in their relationship and their reconciliation is more what it's about, and less this cold feetness, or what's the, we're to believe that it's this conversation, which I don't believe really tracks. I think it's more of a deep-seated thing. It's not a big wormhole, but I think I needed to bring it up because it is a little, feels a little incongruent to me.
Yeah, well, I think, because obviously we're doing a prenup story, right?
Mm-hmm. But not really.
Kind of.
Yeah, but the prenup is more a MacGuffin for just like general, we're from two different sides of the tracks, but we love each other more than that.
But this, I think this is where it gets muddy, right? Because like, is it about the prenup? Is it about the Ferengi thing? You know, why does Rom care about this now? He's never cared about this before. The only thing I can think of,
and he's already eschewed his desire for profits and such, because he took this other job and he's doing, you know, it's like he sort of, not, I don't want to say turned his back, but he showed that he has not prioritized his Ferengi-ness stories ago.
Well, and yes, although I can understand how you can be a little, I think about it this way, right? You take somebody who was raised very religious, mm-hmm. raised Catholic or something, that even if you've walked away from the church, a lot of people that I've known who have done that have had at various times in their life felt like, oh God, did I whatever, and feel weird about it because that was such a big part of your upbringing, or change political beliefs, mm-hmm. or change mm-hmm. whatever it is. And so I think the fact that it's not Quark calling him a bad Ferengi here, that it's Dax and O'Brien. He's used to Quark calling him a bad Ferengi. But I think having Dax and O'Brien, whose opinion he respects so greatly, mm-hmm. question him on this, and
starts him down like a
little anxiety loop there. And I think O'Brien asking the question, you know, is she respecting your beliefs too, in some way? It's not an unfair question.
Yeah,
it's not unfair. I think the result of it becomes insane, but I think I could understand why this spins him for an anxiety loop here.
Yeah, I mean, it probably would have worked for me a little better if he had been showing, if it was closer to the wedding and he had cold feet. Because, you know, at that point, you sort of like project your nerves onto whatever you can grasp a hold of.
Right.
I'm just, like I said, it's not a huge deal, but I wanted to mention it here because it is the sort of one, it makes the plot feel a little more flimsy than it would otherwise. I mean, it's pretty trite as
it's pretty flimsy,
but
yeah.
This is going to be one of those cases where I defend it at the end by saying that I just love them together so much that I can buy it, or that I allow it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I wanted to bring it up.
Fair enough. So back on Ferenginar, Quark explains his problems to his mother. Without a Ferengi business license, he can't do much of anything. And they recap a bit of their previous conflicts. She's too progressive for Quark, and she's also a bit not exactly enthused about the unexpected guest expecting to stay for a long time. Also, she's a different person. Yeah, I mean, I don't have children, mm-hmm. right? And I certainly don't have adult children. I wonder how often parents feel this way when their adult child, like, invites themselves over for a couple of weeks. Like,
yeah, well,
Are you excited? Are you not? Is a little bit of both? A little bit of get the F out of my house?
Maybe a couple of months prior, she would have felt more enthused. But after my dad died, there was like a 3-year period of time where I call it my mom's sort of renaissance, where, you know, she didn't feel the oppression of the kind of restrictive relationship she was in. My dad was kind of a traditional bastard in many ways, to be honest. He just, you know, he was the boss and blah, blah, blah. But also, then she had some years of taking care of him and where it was just like all serving. And so anyway, there was a period of time after he passed away where she just was like, it was her summer, right? Summer, she was going on vacation, she had friends, she was going out. It was the best I had ever seen my mom, the best place. And I think that's kind of where Moogie is right here. And she don't want anybody cramping her style. I think that's
She's
fair.
having her brat summer.
Yeah, 100%. And what it also shows too.
I'm 40. I know that.
Yep. It also shows too that how selfish Quark is and self-centered, and I think most kids probably fall into that. I mean, I'm sure I do when I talk to him. Like, it helps. She calls him on a lot of his ish here, and I think it helps with the plot.
Yeah. No, I think it's an interesting dynamic that I hadn't really. I think about it now, because my parents are like, oh, just come anytime you want. And they're like, yes, but like, do you really want that? Like, do you actually mean that? I don't know. And because like I wouldn't, like, I'm delighted to have somebody come over for a while.
All
but
she
like,
says here, dude, and I agree with this 100%, is just give me a text. No drop-ins. My sister, loves a drop-by.
No, absolutely not.
Keith,
absolutely not.
Maybe you text somebody because you're walking down their block and you're like, hey, you home? Like back in the day when you lived in New York, we all live in apartments. But here you got to drive. You couldn't give me a text. And don't text when you're in the parking lot.
No,
this is crazy.
No. And look, I have been trying to convince you guys to move to be our next door neighbor for like 5 years.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you want to see me.
No!
You just want to know I'm there.
Yes! I want to be able to set up a ping pong date via
and like
text
shout out the
hours
window
in advance.
if you need me. Yeah, if the cat gets out, I can fetch it.
Yes. No, it doesn't mean I want you to drop by. Ever.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk to my neighbors, put in the recycling out.
I will not be watching the dog for you.
Shut up! Leave me alone.
No,
I'm just trying to put the recycling out.
I would watch Pretzel for sure.
Yeah, you would. All right. Where were we? We're still in Act 1. Great. So, she agrees to let him stay, and he heads off to his childhood room. But she unsuccessfully, after she unsuccessfully tries to divert him, because hiding in his closet is Grand Nagus, Zek, and Mayhardu. And we find out, oh boy, Zek and Moogie have been rubbing lobes. They are in love.
Does Mayhardu watch?
Mayhardu's always there. We don't know what what services Mayhardu provide. How full service is that is. But look, as long as everything's consensual, everybody's happy. You Mayhardu what you want.
Oh, you stole my joke.
From either one of us, that joke was Mayhardu. Let's be honest.
You went and killed it.
Yeah. Oh, it was never alive. All right.
Man, makeup department was on point this week.
Oh my God, so much. And the costume department. Look at those costumes. I mean, good Lord. So, Moogie and Zek explain a little bit how they met. She helped him in a tango tournament, and his game was slipping a bit, but she helped him win, and they've been secretly in love ever since. The Nagus leaves, and Quark is delighted. This is great news for him. Meanwhile, O'Brien and Dax have convinced Nog to try and make Lita sign a prenup. Uh-oh. Rom says Ferengi females aren't allowed to own property or earn profit. The WP&P states that in the event the marriage ends, the female gives up all claim to her husband's estate.
Well, you misstated that. They didn't convince him to do that. He got that idea on his own, and they tried to talk him out of it.
Yeah, but they cook. This is on them. This is on, I swear. O'Brien immediately tells him this is a mistake. But since they made Nog all insecure about being a bad Ferengi, off we go. Of course, this is a hard no from Lita.
Lita, who's giving me Bajor and Rachel.
Yeah, and honestly, like an episode like this is where, because the character of Lita as essentially a sex worker, right? She's not doing actual sex, but she's there for that purpose. Wondering like what is her level of agency? She's somebody like and as Mysterious End points out, no, she's 100% in charge of her life. Yes. and her autonomy here. And I like it. She's like, hard no. And this makes Rom paranoid that Lita is like his first wife, just after his money. So actually, that insecurity, right, does tie into Nog's character as established. Because we know his first wife, he was in love with, and she took all his money and ran.
That was last week or 2 weeks ago we got that information. So it's connected.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so it was even more than that. I don't remember, but it was this season for sure. So honestly, that insecurity makes sense. So, obviously O'Brien and Dax are like sparking, but the smoke was there for sure. So off we go. And naturally the wedding is off. Later, in Moogie's house, Zek and Quark discuss business. The Ferengi economy is booming. Quark tries to use this as a chance to get his license reinstated, but Zek says, nope, that's FCA business. And Moogie weirdly takes Zek's side here. Says, you broke the law. Yeah. And
Moogie, who her whole first plot was her breaking the law and Quark being all kinds of against it, and then it seems weird that she would be
traditional in that way.
Yeah,
which is not in every other way. And beyond that, do you remember why Quark broke the contract?
Yeah, he was trying. What was the contract he broke again?
It was he thought he was dying and sold his body on the exchange. Brunt bought all of it, and so if he'd kept his contract, he'd be dead. So you think his mother would be like...
What I think they're trying to surface here is just how devoted and much she does love the Nagus. Because what we find out later, obviously, is that she has some reasons why she's manipulating the situation.
Is she trying to maintain trust with the Nagus? I don't know, but I was just like, what? That's so weird.
Yeah, I guess you could say that, you see plenty of tropes of, everybody hates the stepdad, but she loves the stepdad, so she's like, yeah. I will say that it also raised I was like, what? So I don't know that this is the second time in a row. I don't know if it raises to wormhole level, but we've got the button, so we must press it.
Oh, Quark, you should have killed yourself. Essentially what she's saying there.
Or maybe she's long playing it. Like, she knows that eventually. Like, we don't know how long she's been with him, so maybe she's long playing it when she can get Quark what he wants. But it's been long enough that she's turned around the stock exchange.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. I mean, she's... Yeah, I guess you can give her credit for, like, she's aware of it, and it's a tactic of some sort, and not that we just forgot what that was about. So, anyway, Quark goes back to his room and discovers in his closet again is, of course, Brunt.
It's time to discuss this. The first time I can buy it because they're hiding the boyfriend in the closet. How did Brunt get in?
He beamed in.
Oh, they're just beaming into his closet. You could just beam into somebody's house?
Sure.
I guess you've got the authority. It's like it's the financial Gestapo, right?
Yeah, exactly. But
wait, hold on. Hold on. Is there no security? Like, is there no like safe check that you can block me from beaming into your house?
No.
I can so forget drop in. I can literally just beam in anytime I want?
Yes, unless you have a transporter scrambler specifically set up or shields, then yeah.
Man. Well, that sucks too.
Right? That is the downside to the transporter. Because I always say I want a transporter, but then do you want your Moogie beaming into your?
Or how about you just come down the basement in your boxies because you want to do some whatever you're doing, and Mike's down there playing Xbox.
Yeah, nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that for both of us in that scenario.
Nobody wins there. Everybody loses. Everybody loses.
Yeah. I'm gonna beam you some pants downstairs.
Wow.
Also, Jeffrey Combs is awesome.
Oh my God. Yes. Just wow. So much fun stuff coming. So but anyway, Brunt decides to beam into his closet and hang out there and wait for Quark. It's a funny bit, but it's like,
well, it's a funny bit
closet?
Except for one thing, Keith, as we both attest to. If you're gonna do it, there should have been a third closet beat.
There was.
What's the third closet beat?
The final beat they have together. He beams in and out of his closet again.
Oh, okay. Thank you for closing the gap. I don't know how I missed that.
Yeah, rule of 3. So, in Act 3, Brunt explains that he knows about Zek and Ishka. And he says, she's your mother, Quark. That makes you responsible for her actions. And right now, she's endangering the very foundation of Ferengi society. I can just see her whispering in the Nagus's ear, contaminating his thoughts with her twisted female philosophies. I'm telling you, Quark, if we don't do something to end that relationship, you're going to see clothed females walking down the streets of Ferenginar in broad daylight. If I had my way, I'd climb to the top of the Tower of Commerce and denounce your mother to the crowd below. But we must spare the Nagus even a hint of public disgrace. We have to end their relationship, but privately and quietly. He's basically J.D. Vance with more charisma.
Mm-hmm.
He tells Quark it is his job to poison the relationship in exchange for reinstating his business lighting license. Quark agrees immediately. Meanwhile, Zek gives business advice to a Ferengi named Lek, and the scene is mostly cut. But don't worry, I got it. So here is the scene between Lek and Zek. See, people call us racist for confusing the Ferengi names. Lek and Zek, it's easy to confuse. Lek says, you see, Nagus, my father was a very astute businessman, but he had unfortunate weakness. Oyster toads. Very tasty, but sometimes toxic. Of course, upon his death, I inherited his entire fortune. Good for you. But I find that with wealth comes the desire for more wealth. As it should. So I came to you for advice, Nagus. Do I invest my money in gouge mining on Feckle Prime, or in Tuliberry Vineyards on Sepus 3? Gouge mining on Feckle Prime. What a great line. Zek says, an interesting question. Let's see now. And in the stage directions, it says, Nagus appears deep in thought, but he surreptitiously picks up the pad Moogie gave him and looks up the answer. I think that would have been a good thing to see in the actual episode. He finds what he's looking for, puts the pad away, and looks decisively over at Lek. If you'd come to me a year ago, I would have said gouge mining was the way to go, but at this point, I don't know how much more gouging Feckle Prime can take. So, Tuliberries, it is. The scene's sort of nonsense, but I would have liked to have seen him rely on the pad there. I think that would have made the story a little clearer. Lek leaves, and Quark comes in and begins undermining his mother.
Have you noticed that Quark's brooch in this episode is the precursor to the Under Armour logo?
Oh, well, Under Armour, owned by Ferengi, apparently. The Ferengi Corporation. So Quark says, I just think that's great that she's found someone who cares for her so deeply that he can ignore those vicious rumors about her. You mean the rumors about her earning profit? I know the whole story. The FCA forced her to give up every strip of latinum she made. Quark says, I'm talking about the other rumors. The ones that say she hasn't given it all back. Nonsense. Of course it is. And the wildest rumor has to be about what she plans to do with her fortune. She's going to fund a political revolution to end the male domination on Ferengi. You mean equal rights for females? Crazy, isn't it? I mean, so what if she wears clothing or managed to worm her way into the heart of the most influential Ferengi alive? Those aren't crimes, are they? Absolutely not. And what if she is as cunning and ruthless as any male? That doesn't mean that she's not to be trusted, does it? The important thing is that she loves you. That you're not just some pawn in her plans for world domination. World domination by a female. It's a horrifying thought. Luckily, they're just rumors. Quark, you're doing your mom dirty here. Real dirty.
Because there could be other repercussions there, right? Like, wasn't she sort of like, oh, anyway. I get it. It makes sense. It sucks.
Well, it's very Ferengi, though. Mm-hmm. So later, Ishka comes in to find Quark at the dinner table with a phaser to his head. And he feigns being extra depressed. I don't think this seemed to be played quite that way for comedy anymore. She agrees to talk to the Nagus on his behalf. So back on the station, Sisko, Worf, and Odo discuss the fact that Martok is in a holding cell for throwing one of his men off the second level of the promenade as a disciplinary measure. Great color. So I think like this couplet is great world building. It reminds us that Martok is still on there. It teaches us something else about Martok without having to pay Martok to be there or waste his time in a one scene. But I was like, that's a really funny image that makes total sense. They then run across Rom, who is sobbing loudly as he works. And he pretends that he's happy the wedding is off. Funny beat there, and I think Sisko's great. Meanwhile, Kira and Lita also discuss. And Lita says, I hate him. No, you don't. All he loves is Latinum. No, he doesn't. Canceling the wedding is the best thing that ever happened to me. No, it isn't. I am so glad he's out of my life. No, you're not. Major, have you been listening to me? Yes, I have. And that's how I know you love him. That's some good friending right there.
Great scene, great friending, great dialogue. Well done.
And do you remember the episode where we met all of Dax's previous hosts?
Yes.
And because we didn't have enough cast members, Lita was all of a sudden one of Dax's best friends. Now I see, like, it's weird that it's not Dax here.
Yeah.
Having established that, but I think Kira needed to be in the episode. But see, like this, I could have seen more of this.
Yeah.
Moving in. So back on Ferengi, Quark discovers Moogie sobbing. His plan worked. Zek took her asking him to help Quark as confirmation of the rumors that Quark planted. And Quark says, it'll be better this way. But she cryptically says, this is a disaster for all of us. But we don't know why yet. So Quark calls a very pleased Brunt, who says his license has been reinstated. Yay, Quark, he got what he wanted. So in Act 4, the next morning, an ebullient Quark tries to cheer up his mother. Then the Nagus calls and tells Quark to go meet him at the Tower of Commerce. We find out what's going on. The Nagus wants to hire Quark to be his new financial advisor. He agrees and begins briefing him on petitioners, and Zek doesn't remember his own password. Mayhardu fixes it, but Zek is confused. He is clearly in mental decline. I know, parallels. We'll get into it. Back on the station, O'Brien goes to visit Rom and finds him preparing to bribe Lita with half of his net worth. So he's going to bribe her, which of course, as O'Brien points out, will be worthless, because if he bribes her, then she signs the prenup, she'll just have to give it right back. And Rom knows this isn't going to work. Funny bit here. I want some of that Latinum.
Yeah.
I bet that's
but
available
also, like,
somewhere.
Just a reminder to Mike. You don't need Latinum, right? Like, don't we live in a society where you don't really need money? I thought.
The Federation doesn't need money, right? If you're on a Federation planet, whatever, but outside of Federation territory, you do need money. Like, stuff isn't free. Like, it's not like the entire universe doesn't need money. It's just that the Federation itself doesn't use money.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So, like, he does need money. Like, you know,
So
if
then,
you go to the,
then the resolution of giving it all away is, oh, she's got the salary, right?
She points out that that she has a salary there. Yeah, we'll get there. So he has a new plan, and he goes. I didn't clock Morn there with the jump joystick. That's funny. So he goes to as a new plan. Goes to the promenade to talk to Lita. He announces he has given up all of his money, donated it to Bajoran orphans, thus making the waiver unnecessary. And the wedding is back on. Now, I thought through, because I first thought this was a wormhole.
You're gonna talk. Let me establish the wormhole, and then you
establish.
I think I know how you're gonna fix it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say. So basically, for no reason at all, he gave away all his money because all he had to say was, "I take it back. I don't need the prenup. I'm sorry. I was a nervous Nelly. Blah blah blah." And then they could be both somewhat better financially off and back together. It was a needless conflict. Is what we could establish.
Instead of giving her half of it, he gave all of it away.
Yeah, but he doesn't have to give her anything. That's the whole point. They're not divorced. Like, but I think what you're saying is, like, maybe the prenup thing was necessary for Ferengis. Like, they have to do it.
I think it was necessary for his insecurity about tradition. That I think he would have felt like a bad Ferengi had he had money and not done the prenup. He doesn't want to do the prenup, and he stepped away from the prenup being necessary as a way to get out of having to make the decision to do it or not. Mm-hmm. I think that's what his thought is there.
Okay. I mean, a simple "I'm sorry" could have worked too, but I guess.
Yeah, and it's like, but I think it's about him saving Ferengi face, so that if all the other Ferengis like, oh, did you make her sign? I didn't need to, as opposed to no. Which
okay,
is silly.
I'll allow it.
I mean, obviously it's all silly, but I think that is probably the reasoning there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But
I agree with you.
Yeah, fair enough. But anyway, point being, the wedding is back on, so that's news.
But that said, if that is the case, Hardy, let me just, in defense of the wormhole.
Okay.
Let's take all that as fact, right?
Okay.
As a Ferengi, let's look from Ferengi culture. Is having her prenup half of your nothing saving more face than being in a relationship where the sole earner is your wife? Because now they have to rely on her salary.
Also fair.
So I would like to confirm that the wormhole does stand.
And also, it's not super well thought out by anybody in this equation.
But they are cute. They are cute.
But also,
and that kiss.
Yeah.
That kiss around the prosthetic still worked.
Very impressive. Here's my last attempt to reclose that wormhole, right? No, Rom, he's not really a strategic thinker like that.
Yeah, that's fair. But they do establish him as like a genius, so
he's an engineering genius. But like the political machinations of this, that, the other thing, that's not his thing.
Back to our original criticism. If it had been Quark shaming him, I think that might have had stronger vibes. Well, whatever. Let's move past it.
It's cute. None of it matters. All right. So, in Moogie's house, Quark returns from work with Zek to find his mother looking at the stock market, which has crashed. Of course, Ishka has been propping up Zek and the entire Ferengi economy since they started dating. And she realizes that, of course, Quark betrayed her to get his license back from Brunt. And she says, "Congratulations! You've not only destroyed my life and Zek's life, you've triggered the destruction of the entire Ferengi economy. I hope it was worth it." Oops. So in Act 5, we go to the Tower of Commerce, and Brunt comes in to gloat at Quark's financial failures. And we find out, of course, this was all part of Brunt's plans to exploit Zek's failing memory to take over as Nagus himself. And he gloats, "I couldn't have done it without you. I feel almost grateful, which is why I'm going to let you keep your new business license. Now, put down those pads, pack up your things, and scurry back to that little bar of yours." And Quark returns to his mother. And she says, "Brunt is right. You should be back on Deep Space Nine celebrating your victory. You've proven yourself a true Ferengi. You've betrayed friends and family for personal gain." And Quark hilariously says, "It sounds so good when you say it. But," and here's where the interesting, this is where the episode actually gets interesting. He says, "I think I've been hanging around humans too long. I think I'm developing a conscience. Ugh. It's been coming for a long time. I fought against it, really I have. But living with those people, day in, day out, being exposed to their ethics, their morality, it's like being brainwashed. You poor boy. Moogie, I'm serious. I know you are, and I know how important your problems are to you." Such a great line. "But frankly, Quark, right now, I don't give a damn about them. You've got bigger problems to deal with. Do you want Brunt to become Nagus? Of course not. He's willing to throw our entire economy into chaos just so he can grab power. Sounds like a true Ferengi to me. A Ferengi, maybe, but not a Nagus. A Nagus has to be better than that. His personal greed has to reflect the public's greed. Like Zek. Exactly. So what are we going to do about it?" So this is where I think both Quark and the Ferengi start shading in some more of those details. This is where like we learn a little bit more about the Ferengi world that complicates the hat. You know what I mean? Where the Nagus's personal greed has to reflect the public's greed. Because we always wonder, like, how could this society even function? How could the society even work? How could they develop warp drive? How could they do all of these things? Well, because the absolutism and the stridency of the idea that their entire culture is built around greed is slightly tempered. It's slightly more complex than that, and it's more, you know, at the Nagus level, it's more of an affectation than an absolute belief system.
Yeah, it's almost as if the checks and balances is the checks and balances to a greed-based society. You know what?
We live in one.
Yeah, is that there can't be too much absolutism because everyone, as Ted DiBiase would say, everyone's got a price, right? So yes, Keith, you might be the most staunch believer in. Let's take a Honnold Hump, if you will. Okay, the most terrible. We do not. You and I would say would not agree with any of the policies offered by Honnold Hump. Okay, but if Honnold Hump can be bought, then.
What?
I'm saying is, like you said, at the top level, if people can be swayed, then you know.
Or
you have to fear that absolutism.
Or I'm gonna flip it and say that in a lot of ways the Ferengi culture is based on capitalism, right? And you know, survival of the fittest, business. You know, like your objective is to make the most money possible, but longer thinking, right? Thinking in terms of a longer period of time and zooming out a little bit says, okay, I'm going to spend a little more money here. I'm going to pay a little bit more in taxes so that we can have roads. And those roads, in the short term, that's going to cost me some profit. But in the long run, having those roads will allow me to make more profit because more people can go and I can transport my products. And so it's not absolute. I'm going to grab the money that's in front of me. Long-term thinking, big picture thinking is how you can have capitalism that makes sense. Or that, that functions. You need to be thinking about more than just greed in order for society to function, even in a capitalistic society. So, there we go. So, that's why, I personally am a capitalist, socialist, hybrid kind of idea that incorporates good elements of both.
Listen, I live by the golden rule, Keith. Mayhard do unto others as you would have Mayhard done to yourself.
I'm Mayhard done with this episode. Okay. Anyway, so we just jump cut. So what are we gonna do about it?
I had to watch the scene twice because I was like, did I black out? What happened? What's he referring to?
No, we just jump cut to a celebrating Zek and Quark. So off screen, and they did not set this up, what had even happened here very well. But what happened is Brunt held a congressional hearing into Zek that
Quark debate prepped him for.
That Quark debate prepped him for.
He Buttigieg'd him.
He Buttigieg'd him, and Zek performed well and proved that he had the mental acumen to continue with the help of advice secretly given by Ishka. So he proves himself okay. Quark comes clean.
So much happens off screen in this episode.
Everything happens off screen this episode. But all is forgiven. So later, Quark packs to leave and his mother comes in with a peace offering. His childhood action figures. And she chastises him about taking them out of their packaging.
Funny.
Which was an inside joke between the two writers of this episode, between Hans Beimler and Ira Steven Behr. Ira Steven Behr would never take his action figures out of the packaging, and so that was he was teasing his co-writer with that line, but also incredibly relevant to our other show on this channel, where I hear everyone wincing as I open things and take them out of their packaging for all of my figures here. So anyway. Then Brunt beams into Quark's closet, or the rule of three, and says he's lost this round, but the war continues. And Brunt can't take away Quark's business license again, because it will piss off the Nagus, but he promises to keep hunting Quark. And that is Ferengi Love Songs. I think we have a little song we got to play for ourselves before we can give the episode some love.
I hear Joshua Cronin's partner singing in the other room.
Yes.
Way to hit that note. Well done.
Wow, very impressive. Okay, so we did our wormholes live. Let's do our best moment.
All the love stuff is cute. There's some great scenes, but I gotta tell you, for all the stuff that happens off screen and for all the sort of convolutedness of this, I really actually enjoyed, of all things, there's two scenes. I love the Kira scene with Lita, just for its simplicity and for the no BS nature of it, and it sort of sums up the whole plot anyway. I really like that scene, and I also enjoy. There's something about the scene where Moogie we see her in her back room with her cool little set piece, just like watching the markets and sort of like running her whole back room deal. It just sort of reaffirms sort of the juxtaposition that we are establishing, which is for a not just a society that wants to put women down, But for Quark, who continually underestimates his mom, even after that whole journey we went on that first arc, she's still back there, and all the promises she made, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that, she's still back there just wheeling and dealing and doing all the stuff. I don't know, something about it really just like is the energy, is the vibe of the episode. So those are my two best moments.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was going to do the Kira Lita scene, but I'll do, I mean, honestly, I was so tickled by the Martok story being told as the setup. Now, I think that the fact that our best scenes in the episode weren't really about the episode speaks a little bit to maybe it was not as successful as it hoped it was going to be. But I think we're going to adjudicate that in a little segment we call
You get some stem bolts. Hell yeah, they are self-sealing. Here are some stem bolts for you.
Let me give you the highlight, Keith. Let me give you the highest takeaway I can give this. First things first. I think it's cool that, it's easy enough to how I initially looked at the Ferengis and the initial Moogie plotline was sort of that, look how, we live in a sort of a patriarchy as well. Not sort of. We live in a patriarchy as well. And, isn't that bad, right? That's sort of the juxtaposition and the sort of establishment. And that's cool. That's great to hold a mirror up to that. But it's also, well, there's not a lot of meat in that sandwich. However, what this episode brings a little bit, doesn't have a great conversation about it, but what it brings more into relief that I appreciate is that the motivation behind that might be fear-based. We're afraid of what women can do if given the agency that they seek or that they deserve. It's not a great episode told, it's not a great story told to establish that, but there's enough there, right? That's cool. I'll give it credit for that. Also, I think the smartest choice they made was to do the majority of this story off-world. For some reason, for me, when we're sort of in a Ferengi place, it feels very like ABC sitcom to me. It feels very much we're doing a sitcom, right?
Well, and it looks like one.
Yes.
Because the set is so clearly just sort of flats.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the
and it's more colorful, and it just feels like, I don't know why I was there's no puppets involved, but it feels like dinosaurs to me. Remember dinosaurs on ABC?
I do remember dinosaurs.
Every time we go to Ferenginar, I'm like, we're doing dinosaurs, and it's not the mama. It's much more slapstick. It's bold. It's broad, and that is to its benefit, because I think if we cut back and forth to the station too much, especially where the stakes are so high and things are kind of dark and grim, and there's all this brinksmanship, it would really, in relief or in contrast, make it seem just trite and not. But when we remove it, it works more. So the Ferengi stuff worked for me quite well. I would say that the Rom and Lita stuff works for me just because I love them and but almost feel like they're getting short shrift because we love them, we don't have to try too hard. Like this story, let's be honest, not even trying. It's flimsy at best to get going, and then there is no conflict because it's clear to everyone and to us, he loves her, she loves him. So he's trying to find like a backdoor solution to appease. It just doesn't hold up under any scrutiny. So I don't want to over adjudicate it, but it's not great. And I feel bad because I love them, and we could tell better stories with them. Let's just do it, right? We worked so hard to make Rom independent and to break away. It seems stupid to not give him we could have some actual relationship conflict, but so far all we've had is this prenup thing, and then some random doctor who comes to the station and wants to steal her away, which felt weird. Give me something we could do better, or have them be a pure, I don't know. Anyway, that's my feeling on that. The only thing. The Quark plot, I like that Moogie's back. I think it's interesting. I think it's an interesting way to kind of show some weakness in the Nagus and have her pulling the strings. All those ideas are interesting. My biggest problem with them is that I feel like Quark is always 2 steps behind when I think he's smarter than that. He would have been putting these pieces together. Now, the argument would be that he's so self-involved in his crap that it's blurring him, and I'll buy that. But
it's weird that Quark is the pawn.
Yeah.
At every step of the story here.
Yeah. I mean, what do we take away from this episode? The only thing you really take away is some realization on Quark's part that, hey, human ethics and human empathy have begun to set in. That's sort of the takeaway. And notice that scene was not mentioned by Keith and I as our best moment, because and so much happens off screen. This is one of those rare occasions, Keith. Generally, you talk me up. This episode has gotten under an hour and a half of scrutiny, has sort of lost some luster for me. So at the end of the day, it ain't great. I'm giving it much like I would say. By the way, kudos to the design. I think it pops a lot. The costuming is incredible. The makeup's great. However, Keith, I'm giving you an ugly 69. I'm giving you a Moogie Zek 69. Nobody wants to see it. I wouldn't mind watching it, but only if you paid me. Wait, what am I even saying?
What was that? I wouldn't mind watching a Moogie Zek 69. That was somebody put that on a t-shirt. Quote, Michael Indeglio, August 2024.
Honey, first of all, I call Jen honey, and I just called you honey, so the lines are blurring.
No, thank you.
Please save me and start talking.
The idea of this episode, of the A story, I really like. Right? Finding out that Zek is starting to fade a little bit, and Ishka is the genius behind the throne, propping that up
100%.
With her business acumen. Quark trying to get his business license back, and Brunt finding out about this, trying to exploit this to take power. All of those story beats and elements I think are quite interesting, and I think could be pretty good. And obviously, without getting silly about the parallels, right? This is August 2024, where we have had a leader who I don't think has lost any of his analytical abilities, but clearly has aged to a point where it is time for a brilliant woman to step up and stand in for him, right? And so there's some interesting parallels going on there.
Are you saying that Biden and Harris are banging behind the scenes, Keith? Is that what you're saying?
Are you saying you wouldn't mind watching that?
All goop, a little poop.
The point is, I think that there's some good world building here. I like the progression of Quark getting his business license back. I like the progression of Quark acknowledging that the human ethics have had an impact on him. I like Zek and Moogie's relationship. I think it's interesting. Why not? Right? And the continuing the story of Rom and Lita is fine. I'm glad to have it. Like you said, I think this is a pretty unsatisfying way to do that. If we're going to devote that much time in an episode to continuing their relationship, having some conflict between the two of them, which is what I think is interesting, it's just a much better way to do that than this particular way to do it. So, on the whole, it's one of those episodes where I remember it better than it is. I remember the world building of it, and more than I do the execution of that world building. And I think that I like the world building. I don't think the execution is great here. I think it needs another pass. Like you said, so much happens off screen. All the interesting parts happen off screen, right? The high stakes hearing where Zek proves that he can stay and play, that's off screen. The engagement, off screen. all of this, you know, like that's the interesting part. Show me the stuff that has stakes. And you're sort of unraveling this mystery. It both feels rushed, and yet we don't get to see anything important. So
yeah, also like that scene implies that Zek is aware that of what Brunt's plot is here to like dethrone him. But I thought the whole point was from Mayhardu's inference and the way that Ishka was going about her business was that we didn't want the Nagus to know he was failing.
Right, and I think, and again, this isn't clear, right? I think the implication is he has now acknowledged it, and by acknowledging it and working with the resources that you have around you, the people you have around you, you can still execute the job well. But you have to acknowledge it first. And like, okay, that would be an interesting scene too, where they have the sort of like come to Jesus with Zach and they're like, hey, look, you know, I think you can still do this job, but you need to rely more on the people around you to help you process this information, help you communicate, help you whatever. Okay. See Zach make a turn there too. It's just like, it feels like we told all the wrong pieces of the story. Mm-hmm. And as a result, it's kind of muddy. And so, yeah, I don't think it's a super successful. I think there are much better Ferengi episodes, but I am happy to see Moogie back. I'm happy to see Zach back. Happy to learn a little bit more about Ferenginar and such. So, yeah, you gave it a 69. I'm just going to give it a 71.
Okay. That's not terrible.
And
I'll say one thing I wish we had leaned more into, because I think I really appreciate about Moogie, right, is she's clearly so smart. She's smarter than any of the men she's dealing with, and she knows it, and she takes their bull crap, she takes their malarkey, and yet still does what she wants. She'll say what she wants to appease them, but then she, you know, and she owns her independence when she needs to, but she'll allow Quark to have his flip outs and Zek to have his flip outs. What I appreciate about that is that, you know, it's really easy in all of the drama, Keith. There's plenty of stuff in our country we don't agree with, right? And we have it easy, you and I, right? It'd be so easy for some communities to just say, F it, I'm leaving, right? But there are plenty of people who say, I'm going to stay, and I'm going to make the change from the inside, and I'm going to, and Moogie, that's kind of what Moogie represents, right? Mm-hmm. She's basically fighting the good fight by not submitting, but also by not being
She's doing it on the DL.
Right, yeah, and I think that there's something cool about that, and I appreciate that about her character. I wish we got more of that, right?
Her agency.
Yes.
Yeah, I would love to see, I think you're right. Like, I would love to see more of Moogie's genius in action.
Yes.
Because, again, that also happens off screen.
Mm-hmm. Like, what's the here, it's pretty established that she's helping Zek. She backdoored into helping Ferenginar, right? I think she fell in love with Zek first and then decided to, like, help from the inside.
And also, honestly, I think her being fooled by Quark and his very obvious manipulation undercuts that too. Like, she should have been aware, like, I see what, and she sort of did see what he was doing, but she still fell into the trap.
Yeah, it's messy, yeah. You want to take down that 71 now? You want to go down a little lower? 70?
Fine, all 70. Right. All right, there it is.
You know, 69s are more fun with 2, Keith.
Not with you, buddy. Not with you.
Wrap it up.
You know I love you, but hard pass.
Hey, we didn't make out once.
We did, but we got paid. Sort of. With stipend? We got a stipend.
Travel stipend's all it takes. What would it take for you to make out with Mike?
At that point, it was just like a $2 swipe on a Metro card. Next week. Well, wait, I should say. So, in the IMDb, this doesn't even get a 69. Gets a 6.7, which makes it episode 145 out of 173 episodes of Deep Space Nine. So we're in good company, not finding this to be one of the stronger episodes. But next week we are talking about Soldiers of the Empire. And you know what's crazy to think? We still have 5 more episodes this season. Mm-hmm. It's a very long season.
It is. But then after this, Keith, we have tick, tick, tick. So 5 more episodes plus 2 more seasons. Are they full seasons?
Yep.
So we have just about a year left together.
On Deep Space Nine, yeah.
Maybe a little over a year.
Let me see. Well, hold on. There are 26 episodes this season, and then
6 more weeks.
Right. So and then 26. So there's
32,
52. There's 25 next time. So 51 plus another 6 here. So 57. So a little over a year.
Yeah.
Before we are done. Wow. So September of 2025 will be the series finale of Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine. Oof. Wow. Can't believe it. I can't believe already we're only a year away. That's crazy. Thanks for watching. So sorry, everybody. Next week, Soldiers of the Empire. Till then, this has been Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine.
Thank you for
You
watching
can't cut
K&M
any of that.
Entertainment.
Okay.
If you
asked
enjoyed
for
our
it.
particular brand of nonsense, please like and subscribe. Or become one of our patrons at patreon.com/KNM.
All goop, a little poop.